So Media Bugs, I was lucky enough to win a Night News Challenge grant 2 years ago for this really somewhat wacky and out there idea that I actually had while writing my first book when I was spending all this time hanging out with open source software developers. And they use a bug tracker for their project. It's a public-facing website that people who find problems with their software come to and file a bug report. And they read the bug report and they either say, oh yeah, we need to fix that, or we fixed that last week, or that's not really a problem, we're not going to fix it at all. And it's a public report. It's totally transparent. Once it's there, it stays there. It doesn't disappear. And it becomes a record of their work and their achievement or of their challenges and failures, but it's a kind of, in typical software developer fashion, a very kind of structured and useful way of recording that work. And I thought, as I've been managing editor at Salon for 6 years, and our process of correction was, I think, reasonable for the web, but still kind of haphazard for me. And I felt that there was, I wanted to experiment with this bug tracker approach inside Salon. Never got to it for all sorts of reasons. Proposed tonight that we try to do it in a public way, do it rather than inside one publication, take the model and apply it in a more general way where there'd be this one website service that people who felt they found errors, and they're correctable errors. This isn't really about, arguing about bias. This is saying, you got this wrong, here's the evidence, are you going to correct it? And in some cases, maybe a news outlet would say, no, we're not going to correct it, here's why. The point is that that exchange would be public. Currently, even the most conscientious news outlet, like, the New York Times, which is extremely, almost, sometimes comically dedicated to fixing the smallest errors.
Been there, done that.
The whole thing happens sort of behind closed doors.
Right.
And it strikes me that in the era that we're moving into, that can't last, that this is one of many things in journalism that will be much healthier when it's opened up. So I wanted to sort of create a model for how that could work. I think we achieved that. What we didn't achieve, unfortunately, was persuading any significant-sized news outlet to actually install the widget that we would put on a news article page that would say, click a button to report an error to Media Bugs. So, we didn't achieve a huge volume of participation in the project, which is too bad.
How long has it been going on?
Well, the first year we had it going in the Bay Area only. The News Challenge had a sort of requirement that you have a specific geographical focus. So ours was originally in the Bay Area where I live. And then in the second year we opened it out because we found that most people were telling us that the kinds of errors that they wanted to report happened in national stories, international stories, not so much in local stories. So we opened it out, and that made some difference. We definitely saw an increase in involvement at that point. But really, until a tool that does something like this is actually right there on the page with the article, it's never going to work the way it needs to.
Do you know, are any outlets that you know of, do they have a tool like that that's an internal one at least? Or not?
Well, what we did after we found that we were sort of hitting a bit of a brick wall with this, we kind of created Craig Silverman and I, Craig Silverman who runs the Regret the Error column in CJR and a blog of the same name. He's a real expert in errors and correction policies. We did this sort of joint effort called reportanerror.org, which was an effort to sort of just persuade news institutions, news organizations, that every page should have a button on it that says report an error, whether that button just sends an email to an editor or connects to an in-house form or, connects to Media Bugs if that's the way you want to do it. But just saying that this should be a standard, like a print button or a Facebook share button. And we've had a little more success with that. You'll find the Washington Post actually has a report an error button now.
I can't
take credit for having made that happen, but I think we helped kind of push them along a bit. And sites like Columbia Journalism Review has a button, PBS Media Shift, Huffington Post did for a long time. I think they still do. It's like a contact form on the site, but it's an invitation to people. It says, like, we actually care about hearing from you if you think we made a mistake. And the number of, I mean, I won't go into huge detail, but the studies that are out there show pretty conclusively that journalists think they're really doing a great job fixing all the errors, and the public thinks otherwise, and the data shows that, sadly, the public is right, that there are far more errors, and everything from tiny, misspellings of names up to major statistics and facts and stories that are never corrected. And it's it's sad to see that just continue year after year. One area that I'm sort of on a little bit of a hobby horse about, and that I'll tell you about, that I do think changes for journalists, or will change, needs to change, is what we do with revisions on our sites. Now, in blogging, you've probably all seen the strike-through, right? Where if you posted something that was a mistake and you corrected it, a lot of bloggers will just very informally have the wrong information crossed out and replace it with the right information, and that way they're saying to the reader, look, I was wrong. I'm not trying to hide the fact that I was wrong, but I'm correcting myself, which is what I owe you. And to me, that's great. And I'm sort of very sad to see my colleagues in many professional newsrooms sort of not behaving as responsibly, and a lot of news sites today are going through a lot of head scratching and a lot of problems sort of trying to understand what they should do with the fact that websites can be revised in ways that printed documents and broadcast reports can't be. And it seems so obvious to me what should be the standard practice today, which is that every story you publish should have essentially a record of all the changes that were made to it since it was published. The same way on Wikipedia, you can click on the History tab and see the whole range of changes that were made to a page. You should be able to do that with any news story, too. And this would have two, to me, incredibly valuable effects. One is you would, at that point, be able to, just see what the errors had been made and fixed, and you'd also free up the journalist to improve the product. Maybe it's not an error, maybe it's not a correction, but it's something that you wanted to add, or something that you realized should have been included, and you're adding it. Today, we have this kind of hangover from the print era of feeling that once we touch something after it's been published, we're doing something that's kind of a little bit shady and a little bit wrong, and something that we're either going to try to hide or we're going to try to avoid. And I think as a result, we're not really using the medium the way it should be used.